There are many zombie games in the world. Open world zombie games, narrative zombie games, survival zombie games, tower defense zombie games. It's a saturated genre, but there's some that you really should play. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on Game Ranks, the 20 best zombie games you shouldn't miss. Starting off at number 20, it's Days Gone. This open-world zombie action game has gotten a bit of a critical reevaluation lately. Deservedly so, and everybody at Game Ranks has expressed some degree of this game deserves better than it got type opinions. Like, when it comes to taking on hordes of undead zombies, this game just gets it. In these moments, this game is so much fun, and the modern PC release is nice enough to include a full horde mode, so if you want, you can just play that. And it's great. I do think you'd be missing out if you skip the story. It doesn't have the best writing or anything. Our boy Deacon St. John is kind of a dummy, and the game's name for zombies, Freakers, never stops being semi-embarrassing. Nobody's gonna call zombies freak. Like, we all know them as zombies. If zombies happened, we'd call them zombies. There's no word that could possibly overtake that. Even if it was, like, kinda zombie-ish, people would still call them zombies. But that's neither an exclusive problem to this game, nor is it impossible to get past a little bit of rough riding when there's actually quite a bit to like. The world's massive, exploring it on a motorcycle is really satisfying, a lot of the missions are really well designed and interesting, the shooting and sneaking is some of the best in open world games, the controls are solid, the combat is solid, and to be frank, it's easy to get past these problems. If you haven't played it and you like anything I just talked about, it's worth a try. Whether you have a PlayStation 5 or Steam, it just had a remaster, it's easy to play without much hassle, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I guess I'll see what I can do.
And number 19 is Dead Island 2. The long-delayed Dead Island 2 could have been a Duke Nukem Forever-style disaster with how long it took to come out and how often the project was rebooted, so it's kind of a miracle the final product ended up being as solid as it is. It's a no-frills zombie game. It drops you into a large semi-open world location full of zombies, gives you some objectives and side missions, and that's it. The core of the game, incredibly satisfying zombie smashing. And this game does that very well with some of the gnarliest violence you're going to see in any zombie game. The sort of damage you can inflict on the poor, unfortunate walkers that get in your way is incredibly impressive and disgusting, frankly, in the best way. I'm pretty sure I can't even show half the stuff this game lets you do. It's up there with the grossest stuff Mortal Kombat can muster. You're just doing it constantly to any and all zombies you can see. The simplified gameplay makes for a perfect co-op game, too, because it's easy to get in and rampage around with friends, and the surprisingly impressive graphics make each zombie-filled apocalyptic hellhole a treat to explore. The original Dead Island games are also worth checking out, but Dying Light, Techland's follow-up to the series, pretty much replaced those games completely, while Dead Island 2 is kind of more of its own unique thing. And number 18, the Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster. Most of the games in the Dead Rising series still hold up, but the original remains the best, and the Deluxe Remaster makes the original game a lot easier to get access to, and looks a whole lot better as well. For the most part, the remaster retains what made the original so special. Everything looks pretty much the same, just better. The core gameplay remains mostly untouched, so you're still slicing and dicing every zombie you see in, like, whatever makeshift way you can come up with. The controversial time limit, still a thing here, so if you can't stand time limits in games, this is probably not the game for you. Still, the mall is the perfect zombie playground. It's just so much fun picking up a weapon and going to town on the mindless, shambling hordes. It's a little pricey currently for what you're getting, but if you can find the remaster on sale, it is definitely worth a try because it's one of the better remakes in recent memory. At number 17, it's State of Decay 2. Rather than the standard open-world zombie game where you play as a fixed character and go through a linear story, State of Decay 2 is a little more systemic. It's a surprisingly open-ended game for a game like this, emphasizing player choice and freedom over a specific story, and that's what makes the game so interesting. It's a zombie game that's not so much about a single character's survival, but more about building a self-sustaining community and conquering the post-apocalyptic Earth. You're not just wandering the world, you have an entire community to protect, and that means going out into the world to scavenge for resources that can be used to build up facilities in your camp. It's part city builder, part diplomacy game, part open world zombie action game, and while the action parts aren't as strong as the dedicated third-person shooter stuff in Days Gone, the combination of simulation elements makes this one very, very interesting, and one of the more replayable zombie games available now. At number 16, the typing of the dead Overkill. It's not your basic smack zombie with pipe game. Sometimes zombie games get really weird, and this is the most modern and most accessible entry in a completely nuts sub-series built off the House of the Dead arcade games called Typing of the Dead. Instead of shooting various shambling warriors, you're typing at them. More difficult enemies require typing more complex phrases to complete, while your standard fodder could go down with only a new word or two, depending on the difficulty. It's basically one of those typing games meant to encourage kids to improve their typing speeds, only it's House of the Dead for some reason. These games have been around for a long time, but the only one that's currently out there and easy to play is Typing the Dead Overkill, which is based on the Wii and PlayStation 3 game. It's exactly what you'd expect. It's Typing the Dead, only in the Overkill game, and it's still awesome, despite the fact that it's edutainment, more or less. There's just something really satisfying about these games for whatever reason. They're weird as hell, but they are a lot of fun. And number 15 is Resident Evil 2 Remake, where Dead Rising was very much it's almost a one-to-one remake. This is more of a reimagining of the classic Resident Evil 2, and is all the more better for it. This is a true classic of the zombie game genre, where other great Resident Evil games stray from being about zombies. This one's just chock full of The Walking Dead. What's impressive about this game is how it actually manages to make the zombies scary again after years of Resident Evil games where they just felt like roadblocks more than dangerous enemies. This game is survival horror in the purest sense. You explore a huge interconnected location, collect keys, solve puzzles, find weapons, and kill a whole bunch of zombies while doing it. It's straightforward and it's uncomplicated, and what makes it work is simply how good the game is. The pacing is perfect, the visuals and the controls are excellent, it's scary as hell when it wants to be. It's one of the best zombie games and one of the best Resident Evil games, which you think wouldn't be mutually exclusive, but since Resident Evil 4 came out and introduced an entirely new type of monster, I would go as far to say as it doesn't really fit the traditional zombie archetype. And since then, the series strayed farther and further from what is a zombie game. Resident Evil 2, I can safely say, is a zombie game. Not just a great zombie game, though. It's a great game, period. And number 14 is Red Dead Redemption Undead Nightmare. With the original Red Dead finally available on PC, that means that Undead Nightmare is no longer trapped on outdated console hardware and can be enjoyed by everyone. This weird alternative take on the Red Dead story has John searching for a cure for the plague ravaging the West. It's got all the production values of the standard Red Dead game, but with more of a tongue-in-cheek vibe to the whole thing. It essentially plays like Red Dead, just with zombies, and that's a-okay by me. I miss high-quality DLC like this from Rockstar. It's not long, but it's a lot of fun. It doesn't waste time, gets right into the action. The remaster, it's pretty bare bones overall, but it's worth it just to play Red Dead and by extension Undead Nightmare at 60 frames per second.
You both need to calm the hell down! Maybe this will remind you how to behave. What is going on?
And number 13 is Call of Duty Black Ops 3. It might sound odd talking about Call of Duty in a list about zombie games, but one of the most popular game modes in this series is literally just called Zombies. This horde mode focuses on complex maps with their own unique mechanics, enemies, weapons, secrets, etc. And while modern Call of Duty games have been struggling to figure out what to do with that mode, the older Black Ops games really went nuts with it and made crazy, elaborate maps with incredibly complex, challenging Easter eggs that weren't just little bonuses. They unlocked new story content, new map features, and even bosses occasionally. My personal favorite, and the favorite of a lot of folks, is Black Ops 3. It's not the best game in the series by a long shot, but for zombies, it's gotta be the best. If it's not, it's one of the best, but I think it's the best. With all the DLC, you get a massive amount of content with literally 14 maps, 8 of which are remastered from the previous games, but they're some of the best in the series and even have new secrets and Easter eggs associated with them, while the other Zombies maps remain some of the absolute best in the entire franchise, like Shadows of Evil, The Giant, Revelations. They're massive, incredibly detailed, and they're just fun maps to play while being wildly different. The variety and complexity of the maps, it's second to none. I mean, Shadows of Evil alone is like its own mini campaign, and the setting's just awesome. I'd play an entire game set in that jazzy retro future world thing. It'd be awesome. It's still very much classic Zombies also. With Black Ops 3, they hadn't introduced features meant to ease new players into the experience, so it can be pretty overwhelming at first, but for my money, there's some of the best maps ever made for the series, and there's tons of them. If you're into Call of Duty zombie horde mode at all, this is the game to play. It'll keep you busy a long time.
You're done, my friend. Done!
And number 12 is Dying Light, the true successor to the Dead Island games. It's also better in pretty much every way. While this game did get a sequel, and Techland has done a lot to improve it, the original is probably the best game in the series. The way it combines parkour movement, fast, positioning-based combat, and the constant looming specter of night, it's the secret sauce that makes Dying Light such a unique and fun open-world game. The mechanical depth of the movement and combat is what keeps me coming back to it. It's one of those games that's just really satisfying to play. You don't need to be doing anything, and it's just fun to run around, collect resources for weapons and crafting, pick up a drop or two, or just have some fun parkouring around the city and kicking zombies off buildings. It's just a really good open-world action game, and it sells for dirt cheap now, so it's an easy recommendation. And number 11 is Killing Floor 2, where Call of Duty Zombies gets fancy with all the wonder weapons and complex Easter eggs. Killing Floor 2 sticks to what it does best, and that's fighting hordes of undead freaks with a team of friends. While there is a Killing Floor 3, most fans find the first two games to be superior. Personally, for me, it's a toss-up between 1 and 2. I like them both for different reasons, but for the purposes of this list, I'll stick to 2 because it's the newer game. Both go on sale pretty often on Steam, so you're not going to go wrong with either. These games are horde shooters, and they're both a lot of fun. They're pretty damn challenging when they want to be. You can't play them solo. I mean, you can, but you won't get very far. A solid team working together is pretty necessary to survive for very long. While the AI sucks, the shooting is great, and the tactical options offer some real depth to the experience.
Spotted here. Hurt like hell!
At number 10, it's Project Zomboid. Might look a lot like The Sims, but this is maybe the most zombie game of all time. It's not just about fighting zombies, it's about surviving the end. Just one bad scratch from a zombie can leave you infected, so you have to be incredibly cautious if you don't want to die almost immediately in Project Zomboid. I essentially constantly think about that after having seen 28 Days Later, where it takes nearly nothing for you to go full rabid zombie in 30 seconds. Anyway, even if you're careful in this game, you're probably gonna die. Simple things like broken glass can lead to untreated wounds, which can lead to infection and eventual death. Zombies are your primary concern, but they're hardly the only thing you have to worry about. You have to keep a balanced diet, you have to stay warm and clothed, you need medicine if you get sick, food and water. It's abundant at first with canned food in every house and water you can drink straight from the tap, but as the zombie apocalypse gets worse and worse, all the creature comforts of modern life, they just go away. First, electricity goes out, then the water, then all the food starts going bad, and slowly but surely everything just gets more and more scarce. Survival in Zomboid is extremely difficult, but if you manage to get through the initial danger, then things do actually get a lot easier. It's a fascinating game with a lot of simulation elements to keep things interesting, even when the immediate threat of death goes away. It's not a game for everyone because the simple graphics and complex survival systems make things tough, but it's one of the best survival games around, period. And number 9 is Stubbs the Zombie in Rebel Without a Pulse. The game might be pretty old, and it's usually not the case, but it's actually pretty easy to get this game running even now. The Steam version has been updated to work on modern hardware. It's a weird one, but it remains one of the all-time greats despite its many issues because of its creativity and just plain weird sensibilities. It's a zombie game where you finally play as a zombie, a great concept that's actually pretty well executed given the game's obvious age. The odds may be against you, but you always have numbers on your side because everyone you bite becomes a zombie, and that gets added to your growing army.
All right, buddy, you're going downtown.
Hey, hands where I can see.
Someone light a match.
Go, go, go! Why me?
Woo! Have you thought about changing your diet? You really should.
That's the game. You progress through the levels, bite everything that moves, and eventually build up an unstoppable tidal wave of death by the end of the mission. The whole thing is extremely goofy, but the gameplay is brilliant. I'd love to see a modern game do something similar and expand the gameplay, but even if a better game did come along, there'd be nothing else that looks or sounds quite like Stubbs the Zombie. It's one of those games just truly unique. The developers might have been a little too ambitious for their own good. Not everything in Stubbs works, but it's an oddity that I can't help but respect. It can be pretty janky sometimes, but it's still really fun, even now.
There's something inside my brain! He just ate Bob's brain! Sit! Why me?
And number 8 is SurrounDEAD. Get it? This survival crafting game, it might be new and still in early access, but it's got a lot going for it already. The art style, it's not going to win any awards, but what makes the game great is just how open it is. The map's huge, full of interesting locations to explore, zombies to kill, and the crafting system is rewarding yet relatively simple. The loot is, it's rewarding to find. Base building makes sense, and it's not too much of a pain. It's just a really good zombie survival game, clearly designed by passionate people who know these types of games and are trying to make the best one possible. And number 7 is Plants vs. Zombies. The original is still the greatest, because with the wild 3D multiplayer games, which I was tempted to put on this list, because they are interesting, they are almost impossible to get running these days because of EA's god-awful client. Seriously, I tried to install them, and they will not work for whatever reason on Steam. It's absurd that such popular games from a huge company like EA, they don't actually make them work anymore. Like, you could buy them in theory today if they were playable and people wanted them, which, by the way, there are people that want them. But anyway, Plants vs. Zombies. The original mega hit is a tower defense game where you hold off swarms of zombies from invading your backyard with the power of plants. It's dumb as hell, but it works, and the core game is so simple and addictive. It's just super fun. It looks rough on modern displays, but at least the version on Steam is easy to pick up and play. You'd think at some point they would have made an HD port of this, but this game is still in SD, but at least the core gameplay is a lot of fun. It's simple, doesn't require a ton of strategy or intense planning, but it's so addictive in its simplicity. It's more active than your standard idle game, but not as intense as a more direct, involved tower defense game. It's just a perfect balance, and the sequel wasn't even able to hit quite there. Plants vs. Zombies is starting to show its age for sure, but it's as addictive as it ever was. And number 6 is Oregon Trail. It's Oregon Trail. You know, you died of dysentery, only instead of a covered wagon, you drive a hatchback. Oregon Trail is still fun even now, and the zombie-infused version is a lot of fun as well. It's not one of those games you're going to play an absolute ton of, but it's only $5 on Steam, so it doesn't matter that much. It could have been half-baked shovelware, but the developers actually put in effort to make it a good game, not just a joke title. With a lot of games that come out with an attempt to leech off the popularity of the zombie game or the nostalgia of some random old game, Oregon Trail is one of the better ones, period. It might sound like a shocking thing to say, but it's absolutely true. It is a really good version of Oregon Trail that is zombie-themed. That's literally it. And number 5 is Left 4 Dead 2. The old-time classic still lives, you can still play it, still works, and there's still a fan base for it all these years later. There's little reason to get the first game now that the campaigns have all been ported over to the sequel, so at the moment Left 4 Dead 2 is the definitive experience for these games. Back 4 Blood just wasn't as good. And there's just something about this game that works where all the copycats fail. The controls, the setting, the characters, it's just got this impossible to describe something about it that just works and makes it the best zombies survival multiplayer game thing. One thing to remember, playing this game solo kind of sucks, but with a proper team, which you can still find very easily, it's an absolute ton of fun. Each campaign is just long enough to feel substantial, but short enough that they don't get boring. Like, on the surface, the game seems very simple, but why do so many copy it but end up failing at it? The game just works, despite all logic, and remains one of the most fun zombie games even now. And number 4 is They Are Billions. This game transplants the idea of a zombie horde mode into an RTS, taking a somewhat stale genre and infusing it with a new life. This game is the turtler's delight. Somebody who is definitely turtle enough for the Turtle Club would like this. It's an RTS game where you're almost entirely focused on building up walls and base defenses and rarely ever have to worry about leaving your original starting position. Every few minutes, a new wave of infected attacks your base. Using a combination of units, heroes, and defensive towers, you have to hold them off. This game wouldn't be all that interesting if it was just like easy, and that's why it's incredibly hard. Misjudge the earlier waves and your base will quickly get overwhelmed. If the horde manages to breach your defenses, the game is pretty much over. Just barely surviving isn't enough, and They Are Billions, at least in the game's core survival mode. Along with randomly generated survival maps, there's an entire campaign mode, and while I can't speak to its quality, there's a lot of content there at very least. Even if you don't mess with the single-player story stuff, there's more than enough here to keep you busy for a long time. They Are Billions is extremely unforgiving, but also incredibly addictive.
Building completed.
And number 3 is Zombies Ate My Neighbors, an SNES classic, but you can actually buy it now bundled with Ghoul Patrol on almost all major platforms, including Steam, so you're not just stuck with the SNES. Don't bother with Ghoul Patrol, that game sucks, but Zombies Ate My Neighbors is an all-time classic for a good reason. This game is 55 levels of non-stop mayhem where you and a buddy have to save your neighbors from the undead menace, along with pretty much every other kind of horror monster, before they all die and you lose the game. Every level's the same, you hunt down your neighbors, neighbors on the radar, rescue them before they die, which is not easy. Zombies Ate My Neighbors is notorious for its difficulty. It's hard, but in sort of an arcade way where it doesn't really matter that much if you finish it. It's one of those games that's best played with friends, just jumping in, seeing how far you can get before you die, and then shutting it off. What makes it great is just the excellent and varied level design. The creative weapons, you could use like squirt guns, packages of soda that act as grenades, weed whackers, and frozen popsicles that you throw like ninja stars, along with a crazy variety of enemies that goes well beyond the standard zombie. It's a really fun arcade-style game. Maybe not $15 good considering how old it is, but also, maybe it is. I don't know. You'll find it on sale at some point for sure. Pick it up. And number 2 is The Walking Dead Season 1, the original story of Lee and Clementine. Still the best one. I'm not even a hater of the later seasons, but I have to acknowledge the first was really lightning in a bottle. This game came out before the shine started to come off Telltale Star, and they still had a lot of their best writers on the staff. Yes, it's an adventure game, so the primary focus is on dialogue and some light puzzle solving, but zombies are obviously still a major threat. Sure, more than a few characters manage to bite it from non-zombie related threats, but most people that die in this series, which is a lot, die from walkers. The undead are an omnipresent danger that affects everything in the story, including how it ends. Yes, the choices are not as impactful as they make you think, and the story doesn't branch as much as you'd hope, but the story that gets told is one of the best to come out of Telltale. It's straightforward, and it's very effective. It's a guy trying to save a kid from an extremely dangerous world. It's how they tell that story that makes it such a great and memorable game, and while the follow-up seasons just don't quite get there, the entire Telltale Walking Dead saga is worth checking out, but if you only have time for one, the first season is by far the best.
Officer?
Holy shit! Get away from me! Where the hell are you? Shit! Don't make me do this!
And finally, at number 1, it's 7 Ways to Die. It's Minecraft combined with zombies, which should be pretty basic, but 7 Ways to Die is actually a lot more than the sum of its parts. What makes it so great is how dangerous it feels, no matter how well you think you've built up a base. There's always a weak point that the zombies will eventually exploit, and they'll bring the whole house of cards falling down. The game's block-based building system adds creativity for base building, and it allows some pretty crazy stuff once you've fully kitted out after spending hundreds of hours with the game. As a zombie defense game, it's one of the most fun to play with friends, but it's also a great solo game for players who just want to wander around and see what they can find. That's because each point of interest is actually custom built, and the more elaborate ones function as full-on dungeons with their own challenges and rewards. There aren't just a few of these things either. There's tons of them, and they might not even all show up on a single map at times. These guys understand that having actually interesting locations to explore makes a survival game a lot more fun, and they loaded this game up with them. Whether you're playing pre-gen maps or fully random ones, or there's something interesting and possibly new to find, no matter what. 7 Ways to Die is one of the best zombie games because it really plays into the fantasy of survival. Sure, you might not make it, but you're gonna build some of the most over-the-top, crazy stuff in order to do so. And if you're just a loner out exploring, you're gonna find some crazy elaborate location to get lost in. It's not the most beautiful game, which is kind of inevitable with a block-based world, but it's a game that gives you a ton to do. It's easy to overlook the dated visuals because of this, and it's just fun. And that's all for today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter, Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on Game Ranks.